What if the most important spaces in our lives aren't the places we arrive at, but the passages we take to get there? We're about to dive into a pretty amazing manuscript called the Book of Thresholds, which completely rethinks this idea of transition. So, let's get into it.
So first things first, what exactly is a threshold? The book draws this really crucial line in the sand. See, a boundary, that's like a wall. It's there to separate, to keep things apart. But a threshold, that's something else entirely. It's not just a line you step over, it's a zone, almost like a habitat of its own. While a boundary screams stop, a threshold just kind of whispers an invitation to pass through.
To really get a feel for this, just think about this morning. You know that foggy, in-between moment right when you wake up? You're not quite the person who was just dreaming, but you're not yet the person who's going to go out and face the day. For just a few seconds, you're living on a threshold. You are the transition.
Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to start by really nailing down what a threshold is. Then we'll hunt for them in our cities, explore them inside our own heads, get into their political side, and finally, figure out why noticing these hidden spaces is such a big deal. All right, section 1. What is a threshold? We're talking about more than just a doorway here. We're looking at it as a real, habitable zone, a place you can actually dwell.
And listen to the wording here. It's so specific. It doesn't just say you're on the threshold. It says you belong to it. In that little moment of waking up, you literally embody the idea of transition. You're not a fixed point. You are the passage.
Okay, so we've all felt this, but where can you actually see thresholds out in the real world? Well, let's take a walk through the city and see how this idea gets built into things we can actually touch. Architecture is just filled with these in-between zones. Think about a shopping arcade. It's this hesitation made architectural. It's not really the street, but it's not really a shop either. It's both. Or a shop window, a vitrine. Perfect threshold. It lets you look, it displays, but it also keeps you separate. Even a single doorframe standing alone in a ruin, it's a powerful arch over nothing, a symbol of a passage that used to be. Let that one sink in for a second. The idea that the bridge can outlast both riverbanks it connects. The buildings on either side might crumble, but the structure of passage, the threshold itself, that can be the thing that endures. The connection can be stronger than the things being connected. So, this all leads to a really important question. We've seen thresholds made of brick and glass, but what about the ones we can't see? What about the thresholds inside our own minds? This brings us to the thresholds of the mind. We're going to see how things like memory, art, and even the act of translation create these powerful, invisible doorways. Now, to really get this, there's a key concept in the manuscript called the dialectical image. Just think of it as a mental threshold. It's not just feeling nostalgic, it's that lightning bolt moment when a memory smashes into the present, and in that flash, you suddenly understand something you never saw before. So how does that even happen? Well, it's kind of like a three-step process. First, you've got the past colliding with the present. That collision creates this intense spark of recognition. And then, bam! In that flash, a new truth is revealed, something that was totally hidden when you were just looking at the past or the present on their own. And once you start looking for them, you see these intangible thresholds everywhere. Proust's famous Madeleine cookie. That was a threshold object. It unlocked a door between his past and his present. A camera shutter is a perfect mechanical threshold, capturing that space between a moment and right now. Or what about a translator? They are literally standing in a doorway between two entire languages, not fully in one or the other. Now, this isn't all just abstract philosophical stuff. These ideas have real, urgent, and sometimes painful consequences in the world. So let's get into Section 4, the border and the commodity, and the actual politics of passage. And the difference is just it's night and day. A threshold invites you in. A border is designed to prohibit you. A threshold is hospitable. A border can be hostile. One is all about passage and connection. The other is about regulation and control. They're basically polar opposites. And you can see how this plays out in the real world. Your experience of that line is defined by power. For some people, a border is just a formality you get waved through. But for the powerless, that same line becomes a bottleneck, a place where your whole life can just be put on hold indefinitely. What's even wilder is that our modern world of shopping and consumerism actively tries to erase these thresholds. It wants to blur the lines between the street and the store until the whole city is just one giant shop window. And when thresholds become invisible, we lose our ability to consciously cross them, or to even know they're there in the first place.
So all of this leads us to the final and most important question. Why does any of this actually matter? It all comes down to learning how to dwell in that space in between. And here's where we hit this beautiful paradox. A threshold really only works when you don't notice it. It needs to be anonymous. The second you stop and say, hey, I'm on a threshold, you've kind of already picked a side. Its power is like the unseen hinge that allows a massive door to swing open effortlessly. And this right here is probably the biggest, most mind-altering idea in the whole book. We are always taught that the in-between is just something to rush through to get to where we're going. But what if that's all wrong? What if the passage isn't just the way to the destination? What if the threshold is the destination? What if the most important place you can be is right there, in the doorway? So, choosing to actually live on the threshold, that's an active choice. It's a creative stance. For a writer, it's fighting that perfect balance between saying too much and not saying enough. And for all of us, standing in that electric space between the world as it is and the world as it could be, well, that's the very soul of thinking critically about anything. The manuscript ends with this incredibly simple, powerful line. It's not an answer. It's not a conclusion. It's just a gesture, an invitation. It is itself one last threshold. The author leaves that door open, so the choice to cross is ours. And that really turns the question back to you. In your life, in your work, in whatever you're doing, what thresholds are you standing on right now?